What is up, nerds, geeks, and collectors alike? Today we're taking a look at the Marvel Legends Marvel 80th Year Anniversary Golden Age comic version of Iron Man, Captain America, and the Almighty Thor. The figures come packaged inside this premium Marvel Legends 80th Anniversary packaging, which is unique compared to your typical Marvel Legends packaging. Both the Marvel 80th Anniversary and the MCU 10-year Anniversary Marvel Legends share the almost the same packaging. Now, taking a closer look at the box itself, here we have the Marvel 80 years anniversary as well as the logo of the Marvel Legends, and the only main difference of the packaging in terms of the front are the names of the characters. Here we have Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America. Moving to the side, here we have an Alex Ross artwork of each respective characters, which is really cool. Really old school art, which is printed very nicely on the packaging. Here at the back, we have the bios of the characters associated with the Marvel 80 years anniversary logo, as well as some additional beautiful artwork by Alex Ross. I really like the Captain America one, especially with Cap holding the American flag. My next favorite is Thor, looks like a poster, and then Iron Man with a pose. And at this side, we have the same artwork from the other side of the box. Moving on to the top, nothing here. And finally, at the bottom, we only have again the legal mumbo jumbo as well as the UPC. And that's about it in terms of packaging. I really like the aesthetic of the Golden Age comics, especially the art, and that's about it for the packaging. Now let's get this guys open. Here we have the Marvel Holy Trinity consisting of Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. These guys really look awesome in their Golden Age appearance. Not to mention, they really complement each other as characters, even though their design are drastically different from one another. They still look well together. It's kind of hard to imagine the Avengers without these three, since Iron Man and Thor are basically the founding members of the Golden Age Avengers team, or at least the first time it was assembled alongside with Ant-Man, the Wasp, and the Incredible Hulk to face off against Loki, and with Captain America joining later on. Now, taking an in-depth look at the individual characters, let's start off with Iron Man. Right here we have a beautiful head sculpt of the, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is not the Golden Age Iron Man design. This is the Silver Age. It was actually the Mark 1, which was in the Golden Age, and then from silver or gray they turned it into gold, and then later on as the third rendition of the character, where we finally got a more refined look at Iron Man alongside his red and gold color scheme, as well as a modern and slimmer look to him at the time, showing us how far Iron Man has come, how his evolution as a character progressed in recent years. Make no mistake, this armor is so iconic that up to this date the comics still use it. Recently, Tony Stark uploaded an AI version of his consciousness due to the fact that he was comatose at the end of Civil War Part 2. Moving on to Captain America, here we have a beautiful head sculpt inspired by Alex Ross, one of my favorite illustrators in the comic industry. Here we have Captain America's body with the iconic scales and the star on his chest. And of course, who can ignore that red, white, and blue color scheme that Captain America is presenting. I really like the dark blue in contrast with the white and the vibrant dark red. Overall, I really like the painting and the sculpting of this figure, especially on the costume. His shield is just a simple clip as well as a peg in order to put his shield at the back. And there we have some storage for weapon storage if it's a vibranium round shield, it is a weapon for Captain America. And here we have Thor, definitely the biggest figure among the Trinity. As you can see here, the amount of plastic he has, not only is he big, but he also has that cape. Looking at the side of his helmet, we have that beautifully sculpted wings, as well as that massive and highly detailed cape. I really like that. And here we have again a simplistic design, yet so beautifully rendered into figure form. I really like how this figure turned out, from the big muscular arms, the veins popping out, which is no surprise because this is Thor, God of Thunder. And here we have his highly detailed feet. I think this is some sort of wrapping. I think that's on the design of the figure. It's just beautifully sculpted in. And here we have his cape. Not only is it red, but it has that little specks of black that or darker red in order to give it some shade, give it some dimensions. I really like it. And here's the back, continuing the details from the front. And there you have the Marvel Holy Trinity from the Golden Age and Silver Age. For such a simple design, these figures are beautifully painted. Moving on to the accessories, here we have the interchangeable open repulsor hands for Iron Man. Again, a simple design, but yet satisfyingly detailed. I really like what they did here with the overall sculpt. This is really great. Here we have the peg hole where the repulsor slots, and here we have the peg where the hand slots into the arm. This is actually something that most Iron Man figures come with now. To install the hands, the interchangeable hands that is, all you gotta do in typical Marvel Legends form is position the arm itself and then get a firm grip at the hand as well as the arm, pull it with enough force, and then here we have the interchangeable repulsor hand, and just push the peg carefully, making sure that you do not apply too much force into the figure. And on the other one, unfortunately at this side, the right hand is kind of loose for me. You may not see it here now, but on my copy it's pretty loose. And then moving on to the other accessories, here we have the blast effects. Personally, I put these on the feet, but you can consider them as repulsor blast effect intensifiers. That's what they are to me personally. And here, this is what I mean. Here we have the generic Marvel Legends blast effects, especially for the Iron Man figures. Most Iron Man figures has these by pairs or by 4, and these are very nice with the yellow and the fading into the white at the tip, giving off the illusion that even though it is cartoonish, semi-cartoonish, semi-realistic. And this is the reason why I say that they're repulsor blast effect intensifiers. Like, it intensifies the blast effects that you currently have right here, which is a nice look. I really like this personally, due to the fact that this is like the first time that we ever get to see this. And to install this, what we will be doing is one with just the generic Marvel Legends blast effect, while here we have the blast effect intensifier. Actually, that's gonna be the official name of this accessory if I ever come across it again. That's what I'm gonna call it here on my channel. That's officially the name, blast effect intensifiers. That's what I'm gonna be calling them. And as you can see here, it equally looks good, but with the intensifier, if depending on the poses that you put this figure on. And let's try them at the bottom of the feet, which usually fits, and in this case it is no exception. It can fit with or without the intensifiers, but for me personally, I just leave the intensifiers on the feet without the blast effects. The blast effects are on the arms or the hands, excuse me. And let's put on the blast effect for a more uniform look. And moving on to the head sculpts, the alternate head. Here we have a Tony Stark head sculpt and an alternate masked Iron Man head sculpt, and these equally look good according to their own right. The Tony Stark head is sculpted and painted beautifully, and same could be said with the alternate head, though I will be keeping the one with the flat nose instead of this one. I like the added detail on this mask. I don't know if you see it, but there's traces of some kind of teeth in there. I know it's in the comics, and by adding such little detail is awesome. And in the generic Marvel Legends fashion, in order to swap the head, all you gotta do is firmly grip on the figure in where you won't be able to break some joints, and carefully apply force by pulling off the head right here, and then applying the head with the amount of force it really needs. Because if you exert less effort, this tends to happen right here. It won't peg in, but if you tend to exert too much effort, there's a chance that you're gonna stress and even break the joint itself. So I'm trying to be careful with my figures. And here we have the Tony Stark head sculpt properly installed into the Iron Man body, and this looks really cool. This really looks like Silver Age Iron Man or Silver Age Tony Stark. And for the other head, you just do the same thing that you always do with Marvel Legends that incorporates the alternate heads or overall kit bashing. You just pull the head and push in the alternative head that you wish to install onto the body. But I am still keeping the original flat-nosed Iron Man head sculpt. That is the one that I actually prefer. Moving on to Captain America, let's take a look at his interchangeable hands. And these hands are actually just a closed fist and a holding accessory hand. You already know how to install this the same way how we installed the hands of the Iron Man, as well as every Marvel Legends figure that has interchangeable hands. So instead, let's take a look at these red gloved hands. These are again simplistic but satisfyingly detailed. It's detailed enough as it can get. But what I'm gonna show you is how to install the shield throwing hand. And here we have the shield throwing hand made of clear plastic, but it's painted with some of the red that the figure uses, especially at the arms and at the boots. This is really a nice touch in order to get that effect as realistic as it can be. Here we have the Captain America shield, the iconic red, white, and blue frisbee with the white star at the center. Such a simplistic design, but satisfyingly detailed. I really like that they didn't go overboard. My only gripe with this particular shield is that it's too small. But in order to install it, this is what you have to do. All you gotta do is change it into a peg and peg it at the hand, or excuse me, at the effect. And this is the other way around. Let's just remove the shield and apply it here. Right, there we go. Now I am 100% sure that this is how you properly install the shield. Let's take a look at Captain America. The reason why I didn't show you how to exchange the hands is because you already know how to do it. It's the same way how you do with your other Marvel Legends that has interchangeable hands. And earlier I showed you how to remove Iron Man's hands, and basically that's just what you do for this figure. Might as well just show you how to change the shield throwing hand, just because this is a unique piece. And here we have the shield throwing hand properly installed on Cap. This piece really adds a uniqueness when it comes to displaying this figure. It is an awesome thing to have. Definitely an accessory that every Captain America must come with. And since we already took a look at the shield, I might as well just do this segment where you just clip the shield onto his wrist, and there you have it, Captain America wielding his shield. And to put it at his back, let's just flip this peg. This is basically the third time I've showed this, but you know, let's just add it while we're showing the accessories and the accessory attachment. And there we have some good weapon storage, like I said. So let's recreate that Winter Soldier pose, the Captain America Winter Soldier pose. That is awesome. Moving on to the alternative head sculpt. Captain America only comes with this alternative head sculpt, though I wish it was a unmasked Steve Rogers head sculpt, but I guess this works as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is still a Alex Ross inspired head sculpt, I'm not sure. And in order to install the head, and in a typical Marvel Legends fashion, you just firmly grip on the figure where you won't be able to break any parts of it, or you can hold it safely like on the torso while you pull that head out and then push the alternative head in, right? If my camera focuses, and right, just like that. And there you have the alternative head sculpt. I'm gonna keep the original one, the one that it comes attached with, because the eyes on this one are kinda derpy. Not to mention, this was the best one that I can find. Moving on to Thor. Thor only includes one interchangeable hand. It is a bare fist that has veins popping out of it. It is very good attention to detail. And if you look a little closely, I think they sculpted in a nail right there. You can barely see it. It's a good attention to detail. The interchangeable hand goes into the left arm of Thor. Here we can replace his open hand with a clenched fist. And in a typical Marvel Legends fashion, you just pull it off, and this bracelet is actually a separate piece, which actually adds quality to the figure. It's not simply sculpted in. And here we have it, Thor with the clenched fist on his left arm. Would have been nice if they added some lightning effects for Thor, either if it's color yellow or blue. It would have been a fine addition to this figure. And of course, Thor wouldn't be complete without his iconic hammer, Mjolnir. And here it's sculpted in, actually, if it focuses, if my camera focuses, it states here, whoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. And the hammer itself is sculpted and painted beautifully. If I remember correctly, in recent comics, Jane Foster is the current Thor, thus changing the enchantment into whoever holds this hammer, if thy be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. Just a fun fact from the comics. And in order for Thor to hold this, you just simply give it to him. And here, you just, oops, there it goes. And there he has it. Thor is perfectly holding his hammer Mjolnir. Nothing too special, it's just Thor wielding his hammer as he always does. Moving to the articulation of the figures, let's take a look at Iron Man. Iron Man's head is on a ball joint, meaning he can go a full 360. He can look up that far and look down that far. His shoulders can go out that far, rotating into a full 360 with no problem. He has a double jointed elbow, a little too tight on the top, and then he has a bicep swivel right here, and he has a rotation at the wrist. But for the open repulsor hands, it does not have a hinge, unlike the closed fist. He can actually bend his wrist right here. He has wrist articulation aside from a swivel, and he can crunch and arc. He also has a waist swivel, and then Iron Man can kick and his feet can go back barely. He has a very tight thigh swivel with a double jointed knee. Here we go. And then some boot rotation, if you would like to call it that. And then some back and forth movement on the feet, as well as my camera's not focusing. A beautiful pivot. And that's it for the articulation of Iron Man. Moving on to Captain America, it's very similar to Iron Man in terms of posability. He can do a full 360, look up that far and look down that far. His shoulders can also go out that far, as well as do a 360 with no problem at all. Let's remove the shield, and a bicep swivel with a double jointed elbow and some wrist articulation. Not only just a swivel, he can also bend his wrist, and that goes the same for the clenched fist. Both interchangeable hands of Captain America has more than just a wrist swivel. And focusing, he can also crunch and arc, as well as a waist swivel. He can kick out that far and his feet can go back barely. And he has a thigh swivel right here, and my camera's not focusing again. A thigh swivel and a double jointed knee with some boot rotation and some back and forth on the feet, as well as a beautiful pivot. And there you have it, the articulation of Captain America. Let's put back his shield and position him properly beside Iron Man, and let's just fix his feet, and as well as make sure that Iron Man doesn't fall. And for Thor, he can barely look at the sides due to the fact his hair is hindering his articulation, as well as barely looking up or barely looking down. His arm can go out that far, and it can only rotate for about 180 degrees due to the cape blocking his entire 360 arm rotation. He has a bicep swivel and then a double jointed elbow, as well as articulation on both interchangeable hands, both sides of his hands, as well as his extra hands. And there's the bend, as you can see if my camera focuses. And there we have it. His torso is also unique compared to the two previous figures due to the fact that it's more like a dumbbell joint, where it has two ball joints at each end connecting two pieces of the torso. He has a waist swivel, and then he can kick, and his feet can go back barely. And there we go, barely. His feet can only go back barely, as well as a thigh swivel here, and then a double jointed knee, and some back and forth movement on the feet. And there's the forth, as well as a pivot, which my camera is not picking up, so here we go. Here's the pivot. And there you have the articulation of the almighty Thor. Unfortunately, his hair and his cape hinders some posability, so let's move on to the size comparisons. And Iron Man and Captain America are actually 6.5 inches right here, while Thor stands about 7 inches excluding the wings on his helmet, but if you include that, he will be 7.5 inches high. So final thoughts on the figures. They are absolutely must-get figures. Even with their simplistic design, they are satisfyingly detailed figures. If you are a comic book fan, do yourself a favor and pick these figures up, especially that they tend to come back to these looks. Just recently, as I mentioned earlier, Tony Stark uploaded his AI consciousness into this particular armor after being fatally wounded by Captain Marvel at the end of Civil War Part 2, leaving Tony into a coma. Even Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, and Hank McCoy, aka Beast, wanted to help Tony, but they were too afraid to touch his body due to the fact that he has augmented and altered himself way too much. In the case of Captain America, at the end of Secret Empire, where Red Skull changed the history of Steve Rogers using the Tesseract, instead of being a World War II veteran, he was a spy for Hydra, and forcing the original Steve Rogers in his original uniform to appear before the Hydra Steve and fight one-on-one, with the real Captain America winning by using Thor's hammer. But unfortunately, Thor is yet to return into his original look, and I am highly anticipating for that to happen. For the meantime, if you liked the video, drop a like and subscribe for more content. Till next time, peace out.